While the world was entirely fixated on the borders of Ukraine and Gaza, the United States has just quietly but violently opened a brand new front in the global war. Overnight, the skies over West Africa turned red. We are talking about massive, coordinated US airstrikes deep inside Nigeria. But here is a twist that no one saw coming. This wasn't just a military operation. It is being hailed as the first major geopolitical signal of the incoming Trump administration. Why did the US suddenly decide to bomb Nigeria today, December 27th, and why are supporters calling this the beginning of a new crusade? Let's decode the chaos. Hello and welcome to International Affairs. Today is December 27, 2025, and we are analyzing a developing story that has the potential to reshape the entire African continent. Let's get straight to the facts. In the early hours of this morning, reports began flooding in from northern Nigeria. Local residents reported hearing the distinct roar of jet engines followed by a series of high-impact explosions. Hours later, the United States Africa Command, known as AFRICOM, confirmed the unthinkable. They have conducted precision kinetic strikes against high-value targets associated with ISWAP, the Islamic State West Africa province. Now, on the surface, this looks like a standard counter-terrorism operation. The US has been fighting ISIS for years, but if you scratch the surface, the timing of this attack is extremely suspicious. Why today? Why December 27th? The geopolitical corridors in Washington are buzzing with one specific theory: the transition of power. We are weeks away from Donald Trump officially taking the Oval Office. Today, social media platforms and forums dominated by Trump supporters are celebrating these strikes as a Christmas gift to the persecuted Christian communities of Nigeria. For context, you need to understand the demographic war happening in Nigeria. For the past decade, groups like Boko Haram and ISWAP have been systematically targeting Christian villages in the north. It has been a slow-motion genocide that the Western media largely ignored. But the narrative shifting today is that the sheriff is back in town. President-elect Trump has made comments in the past about protecting religious freedom globally. The deep analysis here suggests that even though the Biden administration is technically still in charge for a few more days, the green light for this operation likely came from the transition team. It is a signal that the United States is shifting its foreign policy from passive observation to active intervention in Africa. But let's pause and look at the map, because in geopolitics, there is nothing just about religion or ideology. It is always about interest. Why Nigeria, and why now? If you look at the map of West Africa, Nigeria is the giant. It is the biggest economy and the most populous nation. But more importantly, look at what lies beneath the ground in the regions where these bombs were dropped today. Lithium. We are currently in a global race for critical minerals. The world is moving towards electric vehicles, AI, and advanced tech. All of that runs on lithium. And guess who currently dominates the mining sector in Nigeria? The People's Republic of China. China has spent the last 5 years building railways, ports, and infrastructure in Nigeria through the Belt and Road Initiative. They have effectively bought the loyalty of the Nigerian economic elite. The United States has been watching this with growing desperation. They know that if China controls the lithium supply chain in Africa, the US auto industry is held hostage. So how does the US respond? China builds bridges, the US builds military bases. By launching these airstrikes today, the United States is reasserting its dominance in the security sector. The message to the Nigerian government is subtle but terrifying. China might give you loans, but only we can protect you from the terrorists who want to overthrow you. It's a classic protection racket strategy. The US is making itself indispensable to Nigeria's survival. If the Nigerian government wants to stop ISWAP from marching on the capital, they need American air power. And the price for that air power? It might just be access to those lithium mines and a distancing from Beijing. There is another layer to this analysis today: the issue of sovereignty. Reports coming out of Abuja, Nigeria's capital, are conflicting. Some Nigerian military officials are claiming they requested the strike. Others are leaking to the press that they were simply informed that the strike was happening. This is a dangerous precedent. If the US military can decide unilaterally to bomb targets in a sovereign African nation, where does the line stop? Critics are already comparing this to the Pakistan model. Remember the 2000s? The US would regularly conduct drone strikes in Pakistan, often without the full consent of the local government, causing massive political instability. Are we seeing the Pakistanization of Nigeria? Today's strike also serves as a warning shot to the terrorists themselves. ISWAP has been growing bolder, capturing territory and setting up a proto-state. They thought the West was too distracted with Russia and Ukraine to care about the Sahel. Today's airstrikes prove them wrong. The blast radius of these bombs sends a message that the US military-industrial complex is pivoting. As the wars in the Middle East cool down, the war on terror is migrating south. But we must ask the critical question, will this work? History tells us that aerial bombardment rarely defeats an insurgency. In fact, it often radicalizes the local population. If there were civilian casualties in today's strikes, and in the fog of war there almost always are, it could hand ISWAP a massive propaganda victory. It could turn the local population against the US and by extension against the Nigerian government. And here is where the Trump angle becomes a double-edged sword. While his supporters are celebrating this as a victory for strength, the optical association of US airstrikes with the protection of Christians narrative could inflame religious tensions in a country that is split 50-50 between Muslims and Christians. It risks turning a resource war and a political insurgency into a full-blown religious civil war. So, to summarize the deep analysis of today's breaking news, 1. The US has conducted kinetic strikes in Nigeria, signaling a shift in focus to the African theater. 2. This is being viewed through the lens of US domestic politics as a Trump-era move to protect Christians, regardless of who signed the order. 3. This is a strategic counter-move to check China's growing influence over Nigeria's critical mineral resources. The sleeping giant of Africa has just been woken up by American missiles. The question is, how will the rest of the continent and China react tomorrow? This is a developing story, and the fallout from these explosions will be felt in markets and embassies around the world. We will keep a close eye on the lithium prices and the diplomatic cables coming out of Beijing in response to this. Stay tuned, stay curious, and remember, in international affairs, there are no coincidences, only strategies.